This program is brought to you by Connie Doto of Connie Doto Realty Group, 119 Pleasant Street, Methuen. When you want results, don't make a move without us.
Welcome to Doto Real Estate View. I thank the viewers for your input into the topics that we discuss here on our monthly show. One question that people keep asking is they'd like to hear more about real estate and questions. They have a lot of questions. So I've asked people to come to the audience and come with their real estate questions. Before I get into the questions, and I want to thank the audience for being here this evening, I'd like to give you a little overview of what's happening in the real estate market in the Merrimack Valley and southern New Hampshire. Well, a little different twist than you see national statistics on what the market is like. We have increased the pricing of housing in Merrimack Valley. Southern New Hampshire, hasn't come up as high, but in the Merrimack Valley we have. We have gone up about 3% in terms of sales for 2012 price point. So that's a positive note to sellers. For buyers, it's also positive because mortgage rates are at the lowest they've been in years. I mean, you can, believe it or not, get into a rate for a 15-year mortgage, 3.5%, 4%, 4% for a 30-year. I know it changes every day, but rates are awesome. So if you're really looking to purchase a home, this is the time. If you're looking to sell a home, this is the time. We also have jumped, get this statistic, 20% in terms of multifamily homes price point wise. That's incredible. We have a shortage of multifamilies. So if there's anybody in the Merrimack Valley, Methuen, Lawrence, Haverhill, North Andover, believe me, that's something that we certainly have a shortage of. Remember, real estate is all predicated on supply and demand. So that's where the multifamily market comes in. People are looking for multifamilies. There's a lot of people out there looking to rent. So I won't get into all of this, but I'd like to hear from the audience in some of your questions. If you could, just raise your hand so we don't have all the questions coming at once. I open it up. Yes.
Rick Bowden. I live actually in North Reading, but it seems to me that the spring market has started to percolate much earlier this spring season. So it's two parts. Is that true? And what is contributing to that increased activity?
Mm-hmm. Good question. You're absolutely right. You know, a lot of people think the spring market starts March 21st when spring hits. That's not true. It really hits in February. The middle of February is typically when it hits. This spring market certainly hit sooner. It's probably the end of January. And I think there's two reasons for it. Obviously, the wonderful weather we've had, so people are feeling good. That's a good time that people say, oh, geez, I'm thinking about selling, I'm thinking about buying. So that's a perfect time when the weather gets better. But I think also another piece of that was the mortgage rates. I mean, rates have been tremendous. So, you know, do we really feel that real estate has seasons? Really doesn't. If somebody wants to move, they're going to move, whether it be winter, spring, summer, or fall. You know, people, it just really doesn't have a season. People have different agendas for what their point is to selling or buying. Thank you.
Can you talk to us about short sales and how you go about purchasing a home that's listed as a short sale?
Okay. A lot of people don't actually understand what is a short sale. So I'm going to briefly just give you a summary over that. We had a show on short sales, a whole show on that, but I'll just kind of give you a snapshot of what that is. Short sale means seller bought a house at $300,000. The house now is worth $200,000. They owe $250,000. So they're short in terms of the money that they owe. So as real estate agents, we put it on the market and we work with the bank, or we have a company work with the bank to negotiate, to get a to somebody to put an offer in on the short sale, and they will go to the bank and say, will you be okay with having this customer, the seller, be short on the money they owe? So in essence, that you hear it upside down, or upside down. In terms of going for a short sale, you can get some good deals with that, but you have to make sure that you're okay to stay. I could wait 6 months till that short sale comes to the end, till it closes. Because remember, the bank has to approve it, to approve that that person is going to give them, that bank is going to give them the okay to say, we're going to sell it for $200,000, because that's what the market will bear, even though you owe $250,000. Thank you.
What's the normal duration of a short sale? How long does it take from?
Well, you know, over the past probably 3 months, we've seen them go quicker, but I've had any take from 3 months. I had one that took a year. I'm being honest. It's, you know, it's all depending on how many banks are involved. If somebody has 2 mortgages, so you have to go to the first mortgage and you have to go to the second mortgage to get their okay on it. So it's all dependent on the bank. Does it depend on how much you owe? If you owe $500,000 and the house is worth $200,000, well, there's that $300,000 span that the bank may say, geez, you know, it's a little tough for me to swallow this pill and let you go away with the $300,000 that you owe. But, you know, there's a balance they do. I'm not sure of how they actually balance their array of what they have for short sales. There's no rhyme or reason with some of them. Some of them you say it's going to take a while, it goes like that. Some you say will never get accepted, they get accepted. So it varies, to answer your question.
How about foreclosures? What's involved in purchasing a house that's being foreclosed on?
A lot of times, you know, people will come to us and say, I want a foreclosed property, or I just want to deal with a short sale. You know, every listing that's out there, if a house is foreclosed before it gets to an agent, it will be posted in a paper. But if it's really a bank-owned property, that will be part of the listings that we will get. It will say bank-owned. Those are very easy to purchase when it's a bank-owned, because it comes into our inventory and we look at it, we can take you in. Typically, the first 7 days, they want owner-occupied on a bank-owned. And then after, it can go to investors. So it's very easy to do that, and they take pretty good care of their properties. If there's issues, they correct them. So they can get some pretty good deals on bank-owned properties.
Andrew DiStefano from Methuen. You had mentioned that there's been increase in sales in this market, and during the recent years, there's been fluctuation of value to the lower side, and so there's a perception out there that the market favors buyers. I, being a potential seller, what would you recommend to me as a potential seller to do if I had interest in putting my house on the market?
You know, I think the first thing you need to do is call a real estate person in there, somebody that you trust and you feel is going to give you the real price on it. I mean, that's really number one. I'm going to give you an example. In the fall, I had a 2-family that I put on the market. I put it on for $220,000. Long story short, they didn't sell. We took it off the market. I just put it on this past Monday for $235,000. I had 3 offers that day. 2-family. So whatever, perception becomes reality. You know, you read papers. I'm in it. I have Beverly Borelli here from my company, as well as Judy Spate, 2 outstanding agents. They're in it. We see it every day. So it's reality because we see it. So sometimes, you know, you read the media and stuff, and some of it's good media, some of it's bad. So it's really to look at the statistics of really what's happening. In 2007, that's when we were at the height of the market. No question. I mean, we were up there. In Methuen, we sold like 1,500 houses, single families at that point. You know, and it weaned down. Last year, we were at 12. So that's not bad. Prices were different, but still volume was still there. So that's really not bad when you look at 2007 was high, you know, but the increase has it been a tremendous amount? No, but I see the economy, the confidence that people they're building, they're feeling good about buying. So I think that's helped. But again, your best point is to have 3 agents out. Don't have one company, have 3 companies out. And we always welcome that in our company. It's like when we go out to give people pricing, they'll always say, we have other people, have them come out. Absolutely. Because you kind of, you know, you can surface and people will see, you know, what's the real deal and what's not. So.
When you said 3, I mean, do you mean get 3 opinions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 different companies.
Right.
And, you know.
And so that I can just, if I go with 3 different companies, I can make a decision of who's best for me, who I feel more comfortable with.
I think, and I always tell people the most important thing when you're hiring a real estate agent, whether it's if you're a buyer or you're a seller, there's 3 important keys that you need to look for. First of all, is the person out there knowledgeable? Do they know the marketplace? Is the person going to negotiate for you? That's a key ingredient. Are they going to negotiate whether you're a buyer or a seller? And they better market your property if you're a seller. So that's 2, that goes with 2. And the most important thing is you better like that person, because you're going to have a relationship that you're going to have to be having good dialogue and good communication. So you better say, you know what, I'm going to see and I'm going to talk to this person frequently, so I better like them and I better feel that you're in good hands with them. So that's key. So.
Thank you. Makes sense.
There's an empty property in my neighborhood, and I've walked by the house so many times, and I would love to think about buying something. But where would I start with something like that? Could a real estate agent help me, or?
They certainly could. I mean, certainly what they could do is, you know, there's sometimes people will come to us and say, I want this particular neighborhood. Well, there's not a house on the market for sale. Well, you best believe the agents from my company will be out there making calls to see if there's something on the market, or we'll get that address, track down the owner, and start the discussions with them. So
Is
there
that
are
what
ways.
you do with an empty house?
Mm-hmm.
Just try to find
Yeah, I can do some
more?
research. There's ways that, as agents, we have tools accessible to us to find that information out. Thank you.
Back to foreclosures again. Do you recommend somebody buy a foreclosed home, knowing what's potentially happening with marrying the notes and some potential drawbacks down the road?
I think to get into, for purposes of this discussion, for foreclosures, we'll use certain parameters and we'll say bank-owned is a different type. So for foreclosures, you're kind of going in blind. You go to an auction. Example, say you go to an auction. If you haven't done a title search, all the reviews, had an attorney pull all what the back dues are owed on it, you're going with your $5,000 or $10,000 check and saying, I'm putting a bid on this and I'm going to close within a certain time period. You better have done your homework. Sometimes you get into the properties that day. When they do the auction, they'll give you 2 hours prior to walk through the property. So it varies, but yeah, you're taking a chance if you don't do your homework up front for a foreclosure. Bank-owned is different. That's when it comes to a real estate company, and that's all been cleared up.
What would you suggest, as a first-time home buyer, what would you suggest would be the very first step or the most critical part of that entire home buying process? What would you recommend to that buyer that maybe is his or her very first step in that process?
Okay. There's 2 steps that you should be doing. You need to be thinking about who you want to represent you as a real estate professional, and you need to get pre-approved from a reputable mortgage company. So, I mean, those are the 2 things that you would want to have happen simultaneously. And certainly if you're working with a professional real estate agent, they'll know who the good people are to go for mortgages, and they'll direct you. So sometimes people Start with the real estate person that's typically, or start with the mortgage company. So those are the two that you typically would do. Thanks.
If you're buying a house, what percentage of the selling price do you usually have to put down? Barry?
It varies. Typically, a few years back, it was 5%. It's typical. That's what people like to get is 5%. It all depends on the person's situation. If you're selling a home and buying a home, well, most people don't have that cash flow. They're taking the proceeds off of the house they're selling to put down on the property they're purchasing. So 3%, people will take 3.5%, sometimes less. So it varies, depending on the situation, depending on the home. So it does. But I'd say at a minimum, it's 5% at offer or $1,000, depending on the price point of the house, and then 3% at purchase and sale.
You have some tips for somebody who's buying a home, selling a home in today's market?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people do, sometimes they will call a real estate agent after they've done all these tremendous renovations to their house that don't always give them the bang for their buck. So I think the most important thing is to have a professional, full-time real estate agent into their home to give them the ideas of what they should do to their home to make it more marketable. I mean, last month, we had landscaping and lawn care. That's an important piece. Curb appeal. I mean, that's a basic concept. Curb appeal is important. The first thing that somebody's going to see, they're going to drive by that house and say, geez, does it look like it's well maintained? If you see on the outside, it looks like it's well maintained. 90% of the time, it's going to be nice inside.
Are pools a negative?
Sometimes people will come to you and say, I want a pool, or I don't want to see a house with a pool. So you can always put a pool in. I tell people if we can't find a house with a pool, but I've had some people that have filled in pools. So, you get people that have different point of views of what they want. So.